are going to talk about one of my most favorite subjects, which is the breath. Because the breath is the most powerful tool that we have in our lives, in our bodies, to affect the nervous system, to shift states, to help us stay present, to help us engage stress. It is so incredibly powerful. And the moment that you begin to pay attention to your breath, you'll never not be able to pay attention to your breath again. So I want to draw this really basic diagram. I am not an artist, so just bear with me, okay? So we've got the pelvis, we've got part of the lumbar spine, and then we have this very powerful, like, dome-shaped muscle called the diaphragm. Now, it wraps underneath and attaches to all of your ribs all the way around. So it comes and has this 3D shape, obviously, that comes up through here and attaches underneath our rib cage. And so as we inhale, the diaphragm flattens out, and then as we exhale, it relaxes. So it works, and then it rests, and then moves itself back up into our chest cavity. Now, the diaphragm and the pelvic floor work together through breath. So as your diaphragm contracts, your pelvic floor relaxes. And then as your pelvic floor contracts, your diaphragm relaxes. So there's this relationship that you will continue to learn, but these two spaces are so connected through breath, and breath is the place in which life starts and when life ends. And then there's this space of presence that we get to decide to be in between. And your workouts are such an amazing place to work on being connected to your breath. Now, why is this important? So your heart, now I know your heart doesn't really look like that, but your heart sits on top of the diaphragm. Okay, it sits more over into the left chest cavity, and then we have the lungs, which also don't really look like this, but again, bear with me. Okay, so they surround the heart. They also sit on top of the diaphragm. I don't want to go too in depth here, but I do want to point some things out that are really important for you while you train, that are going to change everything about what you do. And even if you've found yourself being stuck in specific states, how to use your breath to find your way through and out. Because we're not going around states, we're not skipping things, we're going in and through. And so I want to teach you that, but I also want to help you understand how this is working. So the rib cage obviously wraps all the way around. There's more ribs than this, but we're just gonna go with this. Looks like kitty whiskers, but these are your ribs. Okay. So when I inhale and the diaphragm flattens out, okay, what happens is that I create more space for my lungs to expand. So as I inhale, okay, my lungs are not a muscle that get trained. They are merely tissue that works on pressure. So if there's more pressure on the outside or more pressure on the inside, there's going to be a change. So as I inhale and the diaphragm flattens, I am going to get more expansion in the lower lobes of my lungs, okay? So there's one lobe over on the left side, and then there's two lobes over on the right side. Now, down here, okay, is this rich, dense oxygen. And oxygen is food for your body on a cellular level. So oxygen is really, really important. Now, we can breathe and breathe and breathe, and we can get a lot of oxygen into our bloodstream. But whether or not it gets where it needs to go is going to be based on how well we can tolerate stress, etc. So in the programming, you will practice certain things called CO2 tolerance that will help your body better oxygenate itself. But if every time you're training, you're panicking and vertically breathing your way through your workout, you are going to stress your body out even more. So in this, as we inhale and we learn to use the diaphragm, the diaphragm flattens out and I get more of this rich, dense oxygen down here. Okay, it's like eating farm-to-table food instead of when we vertically breathe and we're doing this and we're not using our nose, we're not using our lips. What we do is we create this state where up here, when we're breathing vertically, the diaphragm isn't moving, the rib cage is not expanding. Okay, we get a little lightheaded because we're over-breathing, which I'm totally lightheaded right now. But also up here are panic receptors. So then ultimately what's happening, the way that you're breathing is creating a panic through your entire workout. We don't want to do that. So we want to create expansion in the rib cage. We want you to work on breathing horizontally. So you can practice this while you walk. You can practice this while you train. You can practice this laying down. But what we want to do is that we want to work on expanding the rib cage, getting the diaphragm to move, because we also have these muscles on the inside of the rib, or between the ribs, called your intercostals, that when the rib cage moves, when the diaphragm moves, the lungs have more space to expand into, which then gives me more access to this rich, dense oxygen. We've gone over the anatomy of the breath and how we use it. But what we need to understand is that the breath is a bridge between the mind and the body. It's also a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious parts of us. And so it deeply connects us to ourselves. And so when we are in this place of vertical breathing, we instead of using our primary breathing muscles, we end up using these secondary and tertiary muscles where we're training and breathing with muscles that it's not their job to do. And so we can feel more stressed out, more flighty, maybe even more freezy, more panicked during a session than we need to be, simply because of the way that we're breathing. But also what happens is when we train and we stay connected to our breath, there's an awareness that wakes up inside of us of ourselves. And so oftentimes when we get really connected to our breath in a workout, sometimes we don't want to do it and we want to run away, because we actually can start to hear what's going on inside of us and we're like, yeah, I don't want to do that, right? It's like driving in your car and it's really quiet and you're like, it's too quiet, I got to turn on the music because I don't want to be with myself. And so when we get connected to the breath during our training sessions, we have this opportunity to really come home and feel safe inside of our bodies. So the more safety we find in our bodies, the more confident we will be as we train and move through life, and the better that we end up performing, whether it's taking a risk out in life, whether it's, lifting something you just didn't even know that you can do. So the breath creates a level of safety that we can build on in order to be more connected and feel more at home in our bodies, so that we can feel like home in our bodies while we walk through the world, through life, our dreams, with our families, with our children, etc. So that is one of the reasons that breath is so important, let alone it's radically helpful in our overall health as well. But that's for another time.